Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. I could see again, so hopefully this week will be a little smoother than last, but thank you everybody for your patience, and let's just jump in and see what we got. First up is the first brand new Nuon game in over 20 years. And Nuon is that platform that was integrated with certain model DVD players that also allowed you to play games. I did a live stream on it a while back. If anybody's interested, I have that linked in the post. And the game is called Ring Flyer, which kind of reminded me a bit of the Star Fox training level. It was also a little reminiscent of the Superman 64 rings, but I think based on the footage shown here, it's going to be a bit more fun than that. And so this is one of those things where, if you own a Nuon and you've already invested in getting a controller adapter and, getting some games for it and just trying to experience that weird gaming DVD platform, then maybe check this one out. Now, the price is $70 and the game should start shipping within a few weeks. And this is a complete in-box order. So it comes with a full case, manual, and a pressed disc, not a CDR. It's sad that I have to say that these days, but it's basically, like a brand new Nuon game would have been 20 years ago, but you get it today. So, that's just one of those things where if you're a fan of the Nuon, it's absolutely worth checking out the trailer and the sale page. And if not, that's cool too. But if you want to see some other Nuon games, as well as hear me hang out with Kevin from Nuon Dome, please check out the live stream we did a while back. I had a lot of fun. It was neat to see the games in action and kind of experience that platform for the very first time. But links to everything you need are right in the post. Mike Chi has just released a new firmware update for the RetroTink 4K that adds a bunch of fixes and features, but the big one that we have to talk about this week is control via serial, including pins on the VGA input, which means if you're using Arthremis's upcoming SVS, you could just have the output be VGA, so you send all of the signals, composite, S-video, component, RGB, VGA, everything right through that, including the serial control port, and every time you turn on a different console, not only will it automatically switch to the correct input, but it'll send a signal to the RetroTink 4K, automatically switching whatever profile you want to use. All you have to do is create a new folder per the instructions that Arthremis shows in the video, and then just copy and paste whatever your favorite profiles are for each of the inputs. So for Super Nintendo, I would do the Ultra Sharp 10X one, and then you just have to rename that accordingly. So it's a couple of minutes of setup, and that's it. And then every time you turn on your console or Laserdisc player or VHS or whatever, it'll automatically load whatever profile that you have set on the RetroTink 4K. So there hopefully will be big channels covering the SVS, the scalable video switch soon. I hope to do a video on it as well, but my time it's been a little crazy lately, but this is probably going to be the switch for people to look at, and the fact that you could integrate it directly into the RetroTink 4K like this is pretty incredible. But there's more. Developer Donuts with Dad was able to use the same serial protocol and some pretty cheap external hardware to control existing switches like the G-Comp, G-SCART, the Extron crosspoints, and even an Otaku Games SCART switch. So essentially, you would take something like the G-Comp switch and you would solder some wires to the EXT port, or I'm sure there's going to be some creative people out there that make some easy kind of push-on methods as well. And then you connect it to I believe it's an Arduino Nano, and you need to just load up some software on it and then connect that to the VGA port, and you could do the same thing. You could have it programmed to switch inputs based on whatever you have plugged into the 8 inputs of the G-SCART or G-Comp or any of those other ones. But it goes even further. Donuts with Dad was looking into doing stuff like trying to get an IR blaster to do the same thing with the RetroTink 5X. I'm not sure how far he went with that one. But also with a serial port to TTL converter module, you could plug it into the control port of the Extron Crosspoint to do the same thing. This is the groundwork for some awesome auto switching. You might even want to call it infinity switching. Sorry, I had to. I know I shouldn't say stuff like that. But seriously, all my dumb jokes aside, this is really nuts because now with all of the stuff that's on Donuts with Dad's GitHub, you could go through and hopefully be able to make some hardware that just kind of sits on, for example, sits on the input of the VGA port. So you could connect everything to it. So you could have it just like the SVS where everything connects directly through that. You could just use the VGA port as the serial control and use other stuff for the Tink 4K. I mean, this is really the groundwork for auto switching for basically anything that you want to do. So just thanks so much to both Donuts with Dad and Arthremis for going out of their way to do this stuff. I believe Arthremis did one quick revision change to the Switch before its release in order to be able to do this all over the VGA cable, which nobody likes product delays, but if there were ever a reason to just hold back a product launch for a little while longer, this is huge. Honestly, I thought my auto switching days were over. I had a Crosspoint for a while on this setup that worked well, but I just thought, okay, well, I always end up taking stuff apart, and then I always got to reference a sheet for what input goes to what. But I think I might be redoing once again for like the millionth time my entire setup with an SVS for this exact reason. I could just have all of the consoles that I know I'm going to just use forever, my Super Nintendo, my Genesis, my Laserdisc VHS, all of that stuff, and have it connected directly through it and have all that auto profile switching set up. But on top of that, it has multiple outputs. So I could even also have one output with just a cable hanging off the side back there. So every time I want to wheel over one of my CRTs, I could still have everything running exactly the way it was, but choose to use that instead of the Tink. So I don't know. I could talk for a very long time about all of the many, many use cases for the SVS, the serial protocol Mike added to the Tink 4K, and all of the stuff that you probably are going to be able to do with the work Donuts with Dad is posting. I think those all just deserve videos of their own. And you could watch it in action or watch the SVS in action in this short video here if you want to see what that's going to be like. But I just think this is a very, very big deal that it's probably easy to gloss over at first until you put your fellow nerd brains to work and start thinking about how this could be integrated in so many people's setups, regardless if you have 6 things plugged into your Switch or 60 in a Crosspoint, an SVS, whatever else. I think this is really cool. And obviously not every feature is going to be something everybody uses, but I think this is a pretty big deal. So please check out the post, all of the links that are in that, as well as the video that Arthremis posted, and hopefully we could see some in-depth reviews of how this stuff works pretty soon. Next up, JT Studios have released replacement controller cables for the NES and Famicom. These are very high quality braided cables, kind of like the braided USB cables many of us probably have, except they're for the original NES controller or for the Famicom controllers that are wired into the original Famicom. The NES cables are sold in single packs for $12 each, and the Famicom ones come in a pair for $18. Dubsenhauer posted a video of how to install them in both and kind of showed the installation process. And I agree completely with what Dubes said about the price on these things. If you're looking to upgrade and you want to make sure you have quality products and or maybe you just want the braided controller cable look, then this is definitely worth the money. You can absolutely get a $2 replacement cable from AliExpress, but hopefully anybody that's listened to this channel for long enough will know that you get what you pay for, and very often in cases like this, you pay for quality control. You could probably buy 100 of those $2 cables, and a handful will probably be totally fine, but a bunch probably won't be. There could be fit issues with a connector, they might not work at all. Who knows with super low quality stuff like that. So if you're on a budget, sure, get a couple of them, expect one of them to not work, right? And fine, the AliExpress ones might be exactly what you need. But if you're looking for quality or you just really like that braided cable look, then definitely check these out. At the very least, check out the links in the post as well as the video from Tubes an Hour. The only other thing to add, and I'm by no means an expert on soldering and modding. I've done it a lot, but all of my friends are infinitely better than I'll ever be. But I will say that when you're, as Dubes showed in the video, when you're trying to work on stuff that's 30, 40 years old, start with lower heat on your devices and just be patient. And this is the time that being overly cautious will do nothing but waste a little bit of your time. So if you have your childhood NES controller or a Famicom that's perfect and you love it, but the cables are kind of ratty and you want to replace them, maybe take a low temperature setting to your soldering iron and first add a little bit of fresh solder to the pins, then put some flux on there and take your desoldering gun at a low temperature. Maybe it's not hot enough. Maybe you'll have to stop, wait for it to cool off, raise the temperature on your gun and try it again. But I would just approach this very carefully because it's so easy to pull up the pads or do damage to this older stuff. And anybody who's worked on a bunch is already nodding their heads while they listen, like, yeah, I know, I've already ruined this and that and that. As I've talked openly about how many things I've broken trying to get better at this stuff. So just remember, these things are old and they're brittle, and replacing the cable, if yours is having any issue or ratty, especially on the on cables that are connected into the Famicom. I think I've seen those get pretty beat up. It's a good idea. Just be patient and, hope for the best. And the only other thing to note, as Doob's already said in the video, the one that I had sent him for the Famicom was a pre-production unit, and the colors and the pinout I don't think matched up, which is not a big deal because whatever one that you purchase will. Just follow the pinout guide on the box itself, as you would expect. It's nice to have the guide right there, but I wouldn't match it to what you see in the video, not because Chris did anything wrong, just because it was a pre-production and the colors might not match up. So just always reference the box that has the instructions on it when you go to install these. But I like them, and I think that if I had any NES controllers that were all chewed up and nasty, like I've seen many with over the years, this is probably the one I would start to use just because I know that they were built with quality in mind. Now it's time for this week's Mr. Updates, care of Lou from Lou's Retro Source. As usual, I'm going to skim through these and give my thoughts where I feel like it, but if you want visual examples and a lot more details, please check out Lou's video. First up, Bedroom Ninja is now selling an NFC engine reader case that supports smaller NFC cards. So the original case allowed you to insert NFC cards via a card slot, just like the PC engine. However, smaller cards wouldn't firmly fit in it, so now there's an option for that. So I guess this is really just about size and fitment. If you prefer smaller stuff, then this would be the one to get, and if not, the other ones are totally fine as well. Next, Taki posted about having pushed up the production schedule for the PlayStation 1 themed Mister, but there really aren't many details as usual, so I'll elaborate once real stuff is posted. Next, Wizzo announced that the Zapparoo app, formerly Tap2 but changed to Zapparoo for licensing reasons, is now open source, so anybody could contribute to it by adding new features or helping fix bugs or anything else. Or you could even use it as a base for your own work. Just follow the open source protocols and licenses that Wizzo had attached with that. Now, the paid feature will remain on the apps that are downloaded through the App Store, but as I showed when I did a quick demo a couple months ago, you can still get all of this stuff from the App Store for free and use it. You just don't get all of the features, but you might not need all the features. So just kind of check it out for yourself and see and decide whether you want the paid stuff or not. But I love how Wizzo's doing it because you're absolutely able to get whatever you need for free. Just if you want the extras, you could pay for it. So I think that's awesome. Also, user Lucky Mike D posted a video showing how he converted the book 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die into a game launcher for Mister, which is ridiculous, and I love it. I love nerdy stuff like that, and while I don't think most people are going to take the time to set that up, you'd probably want to at least check out the video and smile and see how cool that is. So check out Lou's video and the links here as well. Next up, RetroFrog started selling USB power switchers that will let Mr. Pi owners turn off their FPGA gaming setup with an external switch. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why people don't build power switches into their I/O boards like Retro Castle has done for years. And in fact, the main reason I got to know Ivory from Retro Castle is because I thought, finally, someone has a power switch built into their Mister case. And then I realized how amazing those cases were. So, in the I/O boards and everything. But yeah, it's weird that you have to buy an external device for it. And it's okay if you disagree or if you think I'm being too harsh, but I'm always honest to a fault here. And while I love that Todd is making these, and my compliments to Todd, it's just, why do we have to buy these? A power switch isn't exactly rocket science, but thank you to Todd for solving that problem for us. Next up, Super Game Boy Core has been updated by Paul BNL with save state support, as well as a couple of other fixes. But that's pretty awesome. Now you're able to have save states in Game Boy games via the Super Game Boy core, which I just think is really neat because I just, as I'm turning into a grumpy old man, I really just don't have the time to sit there and play the same game over and over and over again and build up the skill set to beat it in one shot. To be honest, I didn't really have the patience for that very often as a kid. But so being able to have save states for a game that you want to just experience, but you don't want to have to continue to grind through, is such an awesome thing. Also, for speedrunners, being able to go back to the hardest parts and practice. I mean, there's a million reasons why I'm a fan of save states. I don't often use them, but when I do, it's just one of those things that I'm very, very grateful they're there. Next up, Albaconde. I'm sorry, I'm probably murdering that pronunciation. No disrespect meant. But on the Mr. FPGA forums posted about a test ZX Next core that they're developing, which has updates that get some software working that the official core can't. So if you're a fan of the ZX Spectrum, sorry, not the ZX Spectrum, just at least check this out and see if this is something that applies to the software that you use, because it could be a huge help, or it might not be something that you need. But if you're a fan of that, it's definitely worth checking out if you use Mister. Next, Hotego's team finished the electrical schematic diagrams for Tekken World Cup, and the core has a bunch of fixes for audio stuff, video layer priorities, and you can now use analog controls via an analog stick on a gamepad. So that's pretty cool. It's one of the betas, because obviously it's still in progress, so that's only for paid Patreon subscribers, but all of Hotego's stuff is released to the public after it's out of beta anyway. A new game was also added to the arcade core that runs Tekken World Cup. It's the American football game Gridiron, which kind of seems similar to Tecmo Bowl, and they were by the same group of people, I believe. Lou pointed that out in his video as well, and I think it's awesome. So this is definitely something that I'm going to have on my list of games that I need to try soon, because I vaguely remember seeing it, but I don't know. I like football and I like video games, so why wouldn't I want to try it? Next up, QM Tech FPGA owners with arcade cabinets now have an option from Antonia Villena to plug it directly into the JAMA port, which I think is great, because I think these cheaper D10 alternatives could really open up a lot more people to use it. And there might have been a lot of people who have arcade stuff that want to access Mister, but it's a lot of money to spend on stuff. And maybe you know that it's a solution you want. Like, I loved the JAMA solutions I used, but if you're on the fence now with the lower price stuff out there, it's great. So if you want to check the how it works and one person's experience with it, check out the links. But that was pretty cool to see that, and I hope we see that more JAMA stuff for the QM Tech and the Mr. Pi boards as well. The next game challenge on the Mr. FPGA Discord is for the game Star Soldier Vanishing Earth for the Nintendo 64. The challenge is for caravan modes, high score with dual leaderboards in the 2-minute and 5-minute modes, and goes into December 15th. Lastly, the team behind the Mr. Multisystem said that the Mr. Multisystem 2 is now in development. And while they didn't give too many details on it, the most important thing, I think, in this announcement is that it is a fully integrated board. So you will not need a DE10 Nano alternative. You'll not need a RAM stick, no I/O boards, nothing. Everything will be integrated directly into one motherboard, which I think is great, because if they can get the price similar to what we're expecting to pay for some of the cheaper ones now, but you just have a turnkey kit, that's always going to be something that brings more people in. Or even if you're a fan of the Mister and you could very easily slap one together, it's still cool to see everything integrated. But also, there's a potential for them to be using a faster FPGA chip. And in order to do that, or there is absolutely a way to do that to be 100% compatible with existing Mister software. So that would be pretty neat. That would mean things that needed a little bit more power to run properly, or maybe don't run at all, could run now. Dare I say, maybe Mortal Kombat would be able to run on this. I'm just crossing my fingers and wishful thinking. I'm sorry to put ideas out there that I probably shouldn't, but that's the kind of mindset I have in this, is even if it's not, this crazy 4K outputting thing, if it's able to run more stuff and it has everything included and it's similarly priced, this is going to be a huge deal. Now, any kind of well-built stuff like this takes a long time, and Heber, the company behind it, don't mess around. They have very realistic expectations for their launch date. They don't skip any testing. So while I am guessing here, I do not mean to make up numbers. I'm just guessing that this is going to be pretty far off before you're able to actually get it in your hands and use it, because I just can't see them rushing a product. That's just not how they roll. So I'm just saying that just to say keep expectations on when it's going to be available, but I'm really excited that somebody's actually doing this. So that's it for the Mr. Updates this week. If you rely on Lou as much as I do, please consider supporting on Patreon, because I could never keep up with this stuff without him. Pre-orders are now open for a previously unreleased Mega Drive called P47. And this was based off of a 1988 side-scrolling shoot-'em-up game, and it was originally planned to be ported to the Mega Drive in 1990, but that, for whatever reason, was canceled, and a team has gotten together and finished up that game. It has a new weapon system, a new game system, new stages, and new bosses, and the background music was also redone for the Mega Drive's audio chips versus the original arcade board. Now, all of these pages are in Japanese, so I'm going by Google Translate here, but it appears to come with a bunch of extras as well as a complete in-box game, and you should be able to order it or pre-order it from multiple different stores, but all in Japan. So you'd either have to have an Amazon Japan account, or you would have to have some kind of forwarding service. So also it's going to be a Mega Drive game. I don't believe there are any Genesis versions available. Maybe the team who made it would talk to a company like RetroBit to do exactly that. But for now, this seems to be a Mega Drive only game. So you would need to have whatever device that you use to run original Mega Drive cartridges. And the price seems to be about $60, including shipping, with it scheduled to ship to customers on March 13th. So I actually wasn't very familiar with this game. Shout out to my friend Beast for telling me about it, as well as letting me know this was even available to purchase. If you want more of a history, Gamatsu, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that website, has a pretty cool timeline. There's a trailer for the game, and if you speak or Japanese or able to read the subtitles, the team who did it showed a live stream of it in action, as well as what you get with it and everything else. So this is just one of those things where a new Mega Drive shooter sounds awesome if you're into that stuff. If you like original hardware, if you have the ability to play Mega Drive carts, and you like that style of game, this one's a no-brainer. If you don't, or if you're on the fence, maybe wait until it comes out and see if they have any plans on a Genesis release of it, see how the game works, and just see what you think. But either way, a brand new, previously unreleased Genesis game, Mega Drive game, it seemed like something I really wanted to talk about, to share with people, just in case you were into it. So thanks again to Beast for letting me know. Metal Jesus just posted a review of the Chromatic from Mod Retro, which is a brand new Game Boy Color with a custom screen that apparently really is amazing. And I really enjoyed MJ's review. He showed basically everything about it, showed what you would expect, showed it next to an analog pocket, and there were a few things that definitely stood out. First is the price. It's $200, which means it's about, give or take, the same price as the analog pocket. So are you a absolute mega fan of Game Boy Color and want to play that and original Game Boy games, on a really high quality screen? Or would you want to spend about the same amount of money and out of the box also get support for Game Boy Advance, plus loading up the open FPGA cores on it, or getting some cheap adapters to play Game Gear, Lynx, TurboGrafx, original games as well on the same hardware? It's got to be up to you if you want to spend that much money to limit yourself to just Game Boy Color and Game Boy. But it is awesome. The buttons apparently feel great. The screen looks amazing. And funny enough, in that video, it appeared that the Chromatic screen had better white balance and imagery production than the analog pocket. Kuro was able to take screenshots from MJ's video and also agree and kind of did an analysis. So this might just be something that analog could fix in a firmware update, or it just might be that in order to get a screen as compatible with everything that analog has, that you're not going to get the same kind of imagery production, which that's fine. I wouldn't be mad at that. But it is good to point out that for this $200, you're getting what you pay for. If you have the money to spend, if this is something that is really important to you, it's absolutely appears to be a high quality piece of equipment. So, I'd like to see more reviews as well, just because the more people that look at this, the more things people are going to stumble across. And the only thing Metal Jesus didn't check out that I was kind of curious about was the video out functionality. And it appears that you use the USB-C charge port to plug this into a PC, and it will show up on your computer as if it were a webcam. So you probably won't even need drivers for it. And then you just add it to OBS for streaming. There's even a little manual that shows how to get it scaled properly so it looks nice. And you could have up to 2 connected to the same PC. So if you're doing head-to-head stuff and you want to stream it, you can. You just need to go into the Chromatics menu and switch it to Player 2 mode so it shows up as a different device. Anybody that's ever tried to plug 2 Blue Yeti mics into the same computer, or depending on the webcam, 2 webcams, know exactly why, but that way it has a different device ID so it doesn't look like the identical product twice. So I think that's really cool, but it's not video out. So while I'm certainly not mad at their marketing or anything, this isn't something that you plug into your TV and you have the choice between playing on your TV or playing on your handheld. The video out functionality is very clearly designed for streaming, which I'm a total fan of. I just want to make sure that that's clear, because maybe I was just reading the wrong documentation, but up until now, I had no idea how it worked, and I didn't think there was any clear info out. So I wanted to clear that up, but honestly, I would just suggest watching this video because it'll give you a good sense of what to expect. And, it'll kind of give you, it'll kind of put into perspective a bit. Is this where you want to spend your money? And I imagine a lot of people, the answer is absolutely, definitely yes, but I also imagine a lot of other people are going to be like, no, I'm going to get the Pocket because it does so much more, and maybe the screen isn't perfect, but whatever. So totally up to you. I don't think there's a wrong answer with this one. So check out the review and see what you think. Songbird Productions is now selling a brand new shoot 'em up game for the Atari Lynx handheld called Microvaders. The standard and deluxe versions are in stock right now for $70 and $80 respectively, and there was an Ultimate Edition, but those all sold out. In the past couple of months, I've been saying that I've been falling behind, but I've been trying to get everything out to you, and I haven't missed any pre-orders, but I did. I missed both of these from Songbird Productions. So my apologies to you. My apologies to Songbird. I'm obviously a fan of theirs. We promote basically everything that they sell and all the cool stuff that they make. Now, the Ultimate versions were definitely for more of the diehard Lynx fans, and both the standard and deluxe versions still come with complete in-box packages. So it's not a huge fail on my part, but I still call it a fail, and I feel bad that I let everybody down in this one. So I would absolutely check out the gameplay teaser and see if this is something that you would like to purchase. This is obviously for people who own the Atari Lynx and who prefer using original hardware and cartridges, or I guess the analog pocket and the cartridge adapter for that. But I'm also not sure if they're going to be selling the ROM separately. And that would kind of be cool for Mystery users or people who use a game drive on original hardware. But for now, if this is something that you're into, I would definitely just check the trailer video, check their website, and see if this is something that you want to purchase. And I don't know, it looks pretty cool to me, but I don't own a Lynx. And I think if I wanted to continue to play Lynx games, I would use my Mister to do so, just because, I like tiny phones and giant TVs, and I like to just sink it to a couch. But that's just my opinion, and it's definitely not the correct way. So if you have original Lynx hardware, check out the post and see if this is something you want to buy. The Japanese exclusive PlayStation 2 game Detective Conan just received a full English translation, and this is absolutely everything. The video and dialogue box subtitles all the way to the game's ending credits were all translated while keeping the original Japanese voice acting intact. So everything, not a single menu or UI element, was not translated in this release. And also, this is planned on being translated to other languages in the future as well. So if you're not a Japanese or English speaker, then this is something that might be, or I guess English is your second language, just to hold off a little bit, and there would be more versions available. Now, Detective Conan was originally a book, and then a cartoon series, and then a bunch of different games, most of which I believe, if not all, were in Japan only. And this is, I think the plot was something like a high school kid gets transformed into the body of an elementary schooler to solve mysteries. I don't know, it was one of those weird things that kind of just worked when you watched it, but even if the plot itself didn't quite make sense, which is a lot of kids focused stuff anyway. But I just think this is awesome to go through an entire thing like this. And, you hear me say it every time. I love translations, even if it's for games that I'm not personally interested in. I just think it's so exciting that, in this case, PS2 fans have the chance to experience a game that they never could have before unless they spoke and read Japanese. And I just love to see stuff like this happen. Whether it was the translation of Afterburner, which I think was like 7 words, or something huge like this, or all the Dreamcast translations, I think it's so important and so awesome that people are taking the time to do this. So if you have the ability to run Homebrew on your PS2 and you want to try kind of a cool, different style game, this is definitely one to check out. And check out Donald's posts for links and all of the info on it. Well, that's it for this time. I'm still catching up with a few things. I ended up catching a cold the same day that I had the eye appointment, which I guess is why it affected my eyes so badly. Bad luck hits me every now and then. Whatever, I'm fine and I'll get through it. But I still have a bunch more catching up to do, and I don't think I missed anything else time sensitive, but I'll try really hard to grind through over the week and weekend and catch up with everything that I had missed. But as always, thank you to everybody for your patience when I have weeks like last week, and also just for being awesome. Thanks to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in any way, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. And I just really love being able to do this. I especially love being able to promote some of the weird and quirky stuff that might not have gotten the recognition it deserves. So thank you all for allowing this to happen, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.